So I agree with the family. I hope you die in prison as well. You know, and if this was a death penalty state, you'd be getting the chair.
Some relationships don't just end. They explode in violent and tragic ways. Like when Shayna Hubers shot her boyfriend 6 times, later joking about giving him the nose job he always wanted. Or Jodi Arias, who stabbed Travis Alexander 27 times and claimed it was self-defense. These stories aren't just about heartbreak. They're about obsession, jealousy, and rage boiling over into murder. How do things get so twisted that love turns deadly? Case number 1, Shayna Hubers. The fatal nose job. Shayna Hubers and Ryan Poston's relationship started in 2011 when they connected on Facebook. Ryan, a successful lawyer from Kentucky, seemed to have everything going for him. He was well-educated, having pursued a triple major in history, geography, and political science before going on to study law. Shayna, on the other hand, was a psychology student. At first glance, it looked like a typical long-distance relationship between two ambitious individuals. But things took a dark turn over their 18-month on and off romance. On October 12, 2012, their relationship came to a violent end when Shayna shot Ryan 6 times in his Highland Heights condo. Shayna claimed it was self-defense, stating that Ryan had become abusive and threatening. She said he had belittled and bullied her, and on the night of the incident, she feared for her life. According to her, Ryan had grabbed a gun from the table and threatened to kill her. However, many questioned whether Shayna's actions were truly out of fear, or if there was something more calculated behind the shooting. One of the most disturbing parts of this case is what Shayna said after the murder. She joked to a friend about giving Ryan the nose job he always wanted, a chilling remark that led many to believe her claims of self-defense were questionable. It's hard to imagine someone who acted in true fear making such a morbid joke just hours after a killing. It painted a picture of someone more concerned with her narrative than remorse. In her first trial in 2015, Shayna was convicted of murder and sentenced to 40 years in prison. However, when it was discovered that a juror had a previous criminal conviction, the verdict was overturned. Shayna was retried in 2018, where she was again found guilty, this time receiving a life sentence. The case continues to provoke debate. Was it self-defense, or was it a carefully planned escape from a relationship she no longer wanted? Case number 2. Jodi Arias, a brutal murder in Arizona. Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander's relationship had all the markings of passion, but it ended in an unimaginable tragedy. In 2008, Travis, a successful salesperson living in Mesa, Arizona, was found brutally murdered in his home. The gruesome details shocked everyone. He had been stabbed 27 times, his throat was slashed, and he had also been shot in the head. His body was discovered 5 days later by friends who had become concerned when he failed to show up for work or return calls. Arias initially denied any involvement in Travis' death, claiming she wasn't even in Arizona at the time. However, as investigators began to piece together the crime, her story started to unravel. Evidence found at the scene included a bloody palm print and DNA from both Arias and Travis. But the most damning evidence came in the form of photos taken just hours before the murder. The pictures showed the couple in provocative poses, with the final images capturing Travis alive in the shower, moments before he was attacked. Faced with mounting evidence, Arias changed her story, this time claiming she had killed Travis in self-defense. She alleged that their relationship had been toxic and abusive, and on the day of the murder, she feared for her life. Yet the extent of the injuries Travis sustained told a very different story, one of rage and premeditation. Throughout the trial, Arias' manipulative tendencies came to light. Her shifting stories and ability to lie with ease made her testimony difficult to believe. Many believed that her actions were motivated by jealousy after their relationship soured, and that the murder was a calculated act of revenge. In 2013, after a highly publicized trial, Arias was convicted of first-degree murder. While the jury couldn't agree on the death penalty, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Arias' downfall came from her own tangled web of lies, which slowly unraveled and exposed the truth behind the brutal killing of Travis Alexander. Case number 3, Michelle Carter, the texting suicide case. Michelle Carter's case is one that raised difficult questions about emotional manipulation and the power of words. In 2014, her boyfriend Conrad Roy III tragically took his own life after a series of text messages from Carter, encouraging him to go through with his suicide. At just 18 years old, Roy had been battling depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues for years. He had previously attempted suicide and was seeing therapists. But on July 13, 2014, his life ended in the front seat of his pickup truck through carbon monoxide poisoning. Carter, then 17, had been in a long-distance relationship with Roy, primarily communicating through texts. What shocked everyone was how her messages shifted from supportive to insistent, pushing Roy to act on his darkest thoughts. Instead of offering help or encouraging him to seek professional support, Carter's texts became disturbingly direct. She told him that it was now or never, and even scolded him when he hesitated, urging him to get back into the truck when he had second thoughts. The case grabbed national attention, not only for the tragedy of Roy's death, but for the ethical and legal questions it raised. How responsible was Carter for Roy's death? Can words alone push someone to suicide? And what role should the law play in situations involving mental health and emotional coercion? In 2017, Michelle Carter was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. The court ruled that her relentless texts and emotional manipulation played a direct role in Roy's decision to take his life. She was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison, but her sentence was later reduced to 15 months, of which she served 11. The ethical implications of this case are profound. It highlighted the immense impact words can have on someone struggling with mental health. Carter's actions showed the dark side of emotional influence, and her case serves as a reminder that words can carry dangerous weight, especially when dealing with someone as vulnerable as Roy. Case number 4. Ezra McCandless, stabbing in Wisconsin. The case of Ezra McCandless is one that shook a small Wisconsin town to its core in 2018. Ezra, who had recently changed her name and identity, was caught in a complicated love triangle that spiraled out of control. She had been in a relationship with Jason Mengel, a National Guard medic, but was secretly involved with Alex Woodworth, a barista and aspiring philosophy teacher. The tangled emotions and secrecy surrounding these relationships eventually led to a brutal confrontation that left Woodworth dead. On March 22, 2018, McCandless stabbed Woodworth 16 times in a secluded area near a dairy farm. Covered in blood, she stumbled to a nearby farm, claiming she had been attacked. Her story initially cast her as a victim, but as investigators dug deeper, things didn't add up. McCandless claimed she couldn't remember the events of that day, conveniently suffering from amnesia during the murder. However, the evidence painted a different picture, one of premeditation and a desperate attempt to control a chaotic situation. The prosecution presented compelling evidence during the trial, suggesting McCandless had planned the murder. Her journal entries, her behavior leading up to the crime, and the sheer brutality of the attack all pointed to a premeditated act. McCandless had been feeling the pressure of her crumbling relationships, and some believe that Woodworth's refusal to support her false allegations of sexual assault against another man pushed her over the edge. During the trial, McCandless's claims of self-defense and memory loss were hard to swallow, given the overwhelming evidence against her. It became clear that her actions were not just impulsive, but rooted in deeper emotional turmoil. Whether it was jealousy, betrayal, or fear of losing control, her response was chillingly violent. In 2019, Ezra McCandless was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. This case is a stark reminder of how emotional chaos, left unchecked, can escalate into something deadly. The question remains, was this a crime of passion, or had McCandless been planning it all along? Either way, Woodworth's life was tragically cut short in a crime that stunned the community. Case number 5. Camilla Gamet, a frenzied attack. Camilla Gamet's case is a tragic example of how violence can quickly escalate far beyond any notion of self-defense. In 2013, Gamet stabbed her boyfriend, Marcel Hill, multiple times in what she claimed was an act of self-defense. But the sheer number of stab wounds, over 10, told a different story, one that appeared less like self-preservation and more like a brutal, frenzied attack. Marcel Hill, described by friends and family as friendly and gentle, had been living with Gamut in Jackson, Michigan. Their relationship had its share of ups and downs, but no one expected it to end in such a violent manner. On the night of his death, Gamut claimed that she had acted to protect herself from an attacker she didn't recognize. However, the evidence presented during her trial painted a darker picture. Not only was Marcel stabbed repeatedly, but he was also beaten, and his injuries were so severe that the jury found her self-defense claims hard to believe. During the trial, Hill's family was heartbroken yet relieved as Gamut was found guilty of first-degree murder. Marcel's aunt, Diana Banks Joyner, spoke after the conviction, expressing that justice had been served. She emphasized that getting such a violent person off the streets gave them some closure, even though nothing could bring Marcel back. The prosecution highlighted that Gamut's actions were far beyond what could be considered defensive. They described how she was relentless, stabbing him again and again until she was certain he was dead. Even though Gamut tried to argue that she feared for her life, the jury saw through it, recognizing the attack for what it was, frenzied and driven by anger, not survival. In the end, Camilla Gamut was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. The case serves as a reminder of how anger and violence, unchecked, can lead to devastating outcomes. What started as an argument ended in a brutal murder, leaving a family shattered and a community grappling with the senselessness of it all. Case number 6, Taylor Schabusiness, a courtroom attack. Taylor Schabusiness's case is as disturbing as it is strange. Accused of killing and dismembering her boyfriend in Wisconsin, Schabusiness has garnered significant attention not only for the gruesome details of the crime, but also for her behavior in court. During a recent hearing, she attacked her defense attorney, shocking everyone in the courtroom and adding another layer of complexity to an already bizarre case. Schabusiness is charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault. The details of the murder are horrifying, involving the dismemberment of her boyfriend's body. Despite the weight of these charges, much of the focus has now shifted to her mental health. Her outburst in court, where she lunged at her attorney, struggling against the officer trying to restrain her, has raised serious questions about her state of mind and whether she's mentally fit to stand trial. The court has ordered multiple mental health evaluations to determine Schabusiness's competency. The evaluations are crucial, as they will help the court decide whether she can understand the charges against her and participate in her defense. Her legal team has indicated that they may pursue a defense of not guilty because of mental disease or defect, which could shift the focus from the crime itself to her mental state at the time of the killing. As of now, Schabusiness's trial is set for May, but with her ongoing evaluations, it's unclear what direction the case will take. This raises the broader issue of how mental illness intersects with the legal system. When someone is accused of such a violent crime, the question isn't just about guilt or innocence, it's also about their mental capacity. Is Taylor Schabusiness fully aware of her actions, or is her behavior a reflection of deeper psychological issues? While the court continues to assess her mental fitness, the family of the victim remains in anguish, waiting for justice in a case that has already taken several unsettling turns. Case number 7, Ruth Kamande, beauty queen turned killer. Ruth Kamande's story is one that took the world by surprise. In 2015, the young Kenyan beauty queen, who had won the Miss Langata prison title, made headlines for something far more sinister than her pageant success. Kamande was convicted of stabbing her boyfriend, Fareed Mohammed, 22 times during an argument in their shared apartment. What began as a quarrel between lovers turned into a horrific act of violence, and Kamande quickly became one of the most infamous names in Kenya. Fareed's death was brutal. The couple's argument, reportedly triggered by Kamande discovering messages on his phone, escalated to the point where she attacked him with a kitchen knife. She later claimed that the stabbing was an act of self-defense, but the sheer number of wounds, 22 in total, told a different story. It became evident that this was not a moment of panic, but rather a prolonged and violent assault. After the murder, Kamande was arrested, and the media frenzy surrounding her case only intensified due to her beauty pageant victory while in prison. Kamande's trial began in 2016 and immediately caught the attention of the public. People were fascinated by the contrast between her outward appearance, beautiful, composed, and seemingly innocent, and the savage crime she had committed. It became a story not just about a crime of passion, but about the unsettling juxtaposition of beauty and brutality. This case forced many to confront the uncomfortable reality that violence can come from anyone, even those we least expect. In 2017, Kamande was sentenced to death, a verdict that reignited a nationwide debate about capital punishment in Kenya. While Kenya still has the death penalty on the books, it is rarely carried out. Kamande's sentencing became a lightning rod for discussion, with human rights groups condemning the decision, arguing that the death penalty was an outdated and cruel form of punishment. Even as she faced her fate, Kamande continued to maintain her innocence, insisting that she had acted in self-defense. Her case remains controversial, not just because of the crime itself, but also because of the sentence she received. Many felt that Kamande deserved to spend her life in prison, but not to be executed. The debate over her death sentence brought the issue of capital punishment back into the spotlight in Kenya, with some arguing that the punishment fit the crime, while others called for more humane sentencing options. Ruth Kamande's story is a tragic reminder of how quickly a situation can escalate, turning deadly in moments. It also highlights how the media can shape public perception, focusing on her beauty and pageant win, while perhaps overshadowing the deeper, more painful realities of a life lost and a family devastated. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.